Close your eyes, open your mind. Egypt history of King Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun, also spelled Tutankhamun and Tutankhamun, original name Tutankhaten, Biname King Tut, flourished 14th century BCE, king of ancient Egypt, reigned 1333-23 BCE, known chiefly for his intact tomb, KV 62, Tomb 62, discovered in the Valley of the Kings in 1922. During his reign, powerful advisors restored the traditional Egyptian religion and art, both of which had been set aside by his predecessor Akhenaten, who had led the Amarna revolution. See Amarna style. The parentage of Tutankhaten, as he was originally known, remains uncertain, although a single black fragment originating at Akhetaten, Tel El Amarna, Akhenaten's capital city, names him as a king's son in a context similar to that of the princesses of Akhenaten. Medical analysis of Tutankhaten's mummy shows that he shares very close physical characteristics with the mummy discovered in KV 55, Tomb 55, of the Valley of the Kings. Some scholars identify these remains as those of Smenkhkare, who seems to have been corregent with Akhenaten in the final years of his reign. Others have suggested the mummy may be Akhenaten himself. With the death of Smenkhkare, the young Tutankhaten became king, and was married to Akhenaten's third daughter, Enkhezenpatan, later known as Enkhezenamen, probably the eldest surviving princess of the royal family. Because at his accession he was still very young, the elderly official I, who had long maintained ties with the royal family, and the general of the armies, Horemheb, served as Tutankhaten's chief advisors. By his third regnal year, Tutankhaten had abandoned Tel El Amarna and moved his residence to Memphis, the administrative capital, near modern Cairo. He changed his name to Tutankhamun and issued a decree restoring the temples, images, personnel, and privileges of the old gods. He also began the protracted process of restoring the sacred shrines of Amun, which had been severely damaged during his father's rule. No proscription or persecution of the Aton, Akhenaten's god, was undertaken, and royal vineyards and regiments of the army were still named after the Aton. In addition to a palace built at Karnak and a memorial temple in western Thebes, both now largely vanished, the chief extant monument of Tutankhamun is the colonnade of the Temple of Luxor, which he decorated with reliefs depicting the Opet festival, an annual rite of renewal involving the king, the three chief deities of Karnak, Amun, Mut, and Khans, and the local form of Amun at Luxor. Tutankhamun unexpectedly died in his 19th year. In 2010, scientists found traces of malaria parasites in his mummified remains and posited that malaria in combination with degenerative bone disease may have been the cause of death. Whatever the case, he died without designating an heir and was succeeded by I. He was buried in a small tomb hastily converted for his use in the Valley of the Kings. His intended sepulchre was probably taken over by I. Like other rulers associated with the Amarna period, Akhenaten, Smenkhkare, and I, he was to suffer the posthumous fate of having his name stricken from later king lists and his monuments usurped, primarily by his former general, Horemheb, who subsequently became king. Although Tutankhamun's tomb shows evidence of having been entered and briefly plundered, the location of his burial was clearly forgotten by the time of the 20th dynasty, 1190-1075 BCE, when craftsmen assigned to work on the nearby tomb of Ramses VI built temporary stone shelters directly over its entrance. The tomb was preserved until a systematic search of the Valley of the Kings by the English archaeologist Howard Carter revealed its location in 1922. Inside his small tomb, the king's mummy lay within a nest of 3 coffins, the innermost of solid gold, the 2 outer ones of gold hammered over wooden frames. On the king's head was a magnificent golden portrait mask, and numerous pieces of jewelry and amulets lay upon the mummy and in its wrappings. The coffins and stone sarcophagus were surrounded by 4 text-covered shrines of hammered gold over wood, which practically filled the burial chamber. The other rooms were crammed with furniture, statuary, clothes, chariots, weapons, staffs, and numerous other objects. But for his tomb, Tutankhamun has little claim to fame. As it is, he is perhaps better known than any of his longer-lived and better documented predecessors and successors. His renown was secured after the highly popular Treasures of Tutankhamun exhibit traveled the world in the 1960s and 70s. The treasures are housed at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Thanks for watching. Third Eye YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe.